Holton here. Thanks for watching the Hot Zone, and I am coming to you from the lovely Premier Palace Hotel in downtown Kyiv, Ukraine. The Premier Palace, where getting your laundry done will cost more than buying new laundry. Apparently, it's amazing how much laundry costs at this place and many hotels like it. But it's a nice place, and I'm happy to be here. We just got back from several days down on the front lines where the living accommodations were significantly less luxurious, but the experience was much better. We stayed in that old Soviet hospital and ate buckwheat and gruel with the troops. But that's the kind of thing that I enjoy doing, and that's the reason I got into this job, not to stay in fancy hotels around the globe, but I'm not going to complain about this hotel. It's very nice. Anyway, I wanted to talk today about something that's kind of gone viral. I've been reporting on this for the last couple days, and it's really got traction. The average video on Newsmax's YouTube page gets maybe 3,000-4,000 views. This one has gotten more than 70,000 in about 24 hours. So it's obviously struck a nerve, and so I wanted to talk a little more about it, and that is the money that we are sending to Ukraine, the $40 billion that was just voted on by the Congress to be sent here, what that actually buys and why Ukraine is still asking for more when a lot of people are saying, why would we give them more? $40 billion is a lot of money. You know, they should be happy with that. We ought to move on and do something about inflation instead of sending more money to Ukraine. Let me talk a little bit about where that $40 billion goes, and you might understand a little bit why the Ukrainians are saying they haven't gotten what they need yet to accomplish kicking Russia out of their country. First of all, $40 billion is to be spread out over many years. As a matter of fact, some of this money won't get to Ukraine. It isn't slated to be here until 2031. And that's more than half, actually, of the money is slated to come in future years. There's a great article by the Center for Strategic and International Studies that talks about the breakdown of this, and that's where I'm getting my information. I'll put a link to this in the description if you want to go there. While you're down there, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. We're well over 10,500 viewers now. And that's cool. I'm happy with that. This aid package only provides $19 billion for immediate military support to Ukraine, and of that, let's break down that $19 billion. $19 billion still sounds like a lot of money, but let's break that down. $9 billion of that $19 billion is actually going to the U.S. Pentagon, going back to the Pentagon, so that the Pentagon can buy new toys to replace the toys that it's already sent to Ukraine. So then you would say, well, then Ukraine's already received $9 billion worth of toys. No, they haven't. They've received $3 billion, or they are set to receive $3 billion. That hasn't gotten here yet, not all of it. And the Pentagon wants to upgrade. They want to get newer, fancier, better toys, more expensive toys. So it's kind of like the Pentagon is gifting its old Subaru with 200,000 miles on it to Ukraine, and then they're wanting to buy a brand new Jag or Range Rover or something like that. So they're wanting to upgrade, and none of that $9 billion will actually come to Ukraine. Another $4 billion of that $19 billion goes to pay for U.S. troops that have been sent to Poland and other places in Europe in order to sort of be prepared in case Russia decides to go further than Ukraine at some point, and provide a deterrence for Russia to do so. Now, that money doesn't help Ukraine really at all. That helps NATO. And $4 billion of that money goes to reimburse, or I'm sorry, $1 billion of that money goes to reimburse NATO allies for weapons that they've already sent to Ukraine. So Ukraine essentially already has that. If you look at, you kind of ask yourself this question, like, why does the United States have to reimburse our allies for weapons that our allies gave away? Well, maybe it's because the allies will then use that money to buy new stuff from Raytheon and BAE and DynCorp and places like that. So, it will eventually feed back into the U.S. economy, perhaps, if they decide to buy from us. That's why many of them were talking about giving up their old, fighter jets, their old MiG fighter jets, Soviet-era fighter jets, to Ukraine, because then they could get newer F-16, F-18 fighter jets from the United States. And so a lot of the West, a lot of European countries saw this as an opportunity for them to upgrade their armories as well, their capabilities as well. And that, again, doesn't help Ukraine any more than they've already been helped. So we can go on and on with this. Let's see. It says here that there's a $6 billion special fund established by the National Defense Authorization Act, which provides training, equipment, weapons, logistics support, supplies and services and salaries and stipends, et cetera, to Ukraine. Now, that money will help Ukraine, but the DoD has to report it to Congress 15 days before any transfers occur. They haven't done that yet, so Ukraine probably doesn't have any of that money yet. Replenishment of U.S. weapons stocks, like I said, $9 billion to replace the $3.3 billion they've given away. Foreign military financing program. This will help Ukraine at some point, but it's not helping them anytime soon. That gives Ukraine the ability to buy new weapon systems from the United States. New weapon systems. These things have a multi-year lead time, so if they want to buy new tanks, buy new fighter jets, we will help them finance those purchases. But again, it'll take maybe years for them to actually get them. So I think what this shows is this $40 billion shows that the United States expects this war to go on for a long, 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 long time. And I tend to agree with that. It probably will, especially as we see the Russians digging in now and sort of solidifying what gains that they've made. Now, as you know, the United States sent about 10,500 troops to Europe. A lot of this money, $4 billion, will go to support those troops. There's increases in critical munitions stocks, but not for Ukraine. So $500 million is going to help other countries increase their critical munitions stocks. That means artillery rounds and things like that. But that's not going to help Ukraine at all. It helps to support the expansion of the missile production base, again, for other countries and for the United States. The missile production base means spending money, like $600 million in this case, to store up rare earth minerals that are going to be needed if we need to create more missiles, because we're seeing what's happening to Russia, where they're unable to make more missiles because they can't get the chips, they can't get the materials that they need to do it. And we're saying, hey, maybe if we ever get in that situation, we're going to want to have a stockpile of rare earth minerals and stuff so that we can make more missiles if we need them. That goes right to the United States. $364 million of this $40 billion goes to research and development. It's kind of vague, but it says making U.S. equipment more export friendly. Okay, but I'm not sure that helps Ukraine right now either. Humanitarian and global assistance. About $16 billion of the package is for humanitarian assistance. Some of that, $350 million, is going to help migration and refugee assistance. That is to help Ukrainians settle in Poland and other places. $4.3 billion goes to international disaster assistance, which will respond to humanitarian needs in Ukraine and other countries impacted by the situation in Ukraine. 8.8 billion is economic support. So it's Title V statutory language, which specifies that this provides assistance for Ukraine and countries impacted, like Poland, to combat human trafficking. Well, that's nice, but again, it's not going to buy more ammo for Ukraine. $900 million goes to humanitarian aid, which supports Ukrainian refugees in the United States. I don't know if you've seen this, but we're allowing pretty much any Ukrainian who wants to emigrate to the United States right now. It's just another way that the Biden administration is increasing the number of migrants into the U.S. They're, again, trying to elect a new populace. It's the government electing a new people instead of the people electing a new government. And the Ukrainians need to go somewhere, but it would be much better for them to go to a nearby country so that when things settle down, they can go back home. If they come to the United States, it's likely that they will stay and stay forever and bring their relatives and their relatives' relatives and the friends of their relatives' relatives, etc., and so on and so forth ad nauseum. $190 million goes to diplomatic programs, international narcotics control enforcement, embassy security, demining and non-proliferation programs around the world. Doesn't have anything to do with Ukraine specifically. Tracing the property of Russian oligarchs. We're going to spend $52 million on that. So that would help Ukraine if we gave that property to them that once we confiscate it, but that's not going to happen. So again, so much of this bill, it seems like almost all of it, to tell you the truth, is what I would call a giant Christmas tree. That we say we're going to do something nice for Ukraine. We voted on $40 billion. It's a bipartisan thing. People across the United States, because they have soft hearts and are compassionate, want to help the people of Ukraine who are under attack right now from an evil regime. But almost none of this money actually goes to them. This is a Christmas tree bill that everybody hung their pet project on and got money for whatever new toys they wanted and new things, new programs that they liked and things like that. And very little of that actually goes to Ukraine. So today, Ukraine is saying, hey, listen, guys, we've actually received about 10% of what we really need to win this war. They have received billions in assistance. They've received 100 M777 howitzers, for example. But those 100 howitzers have to spread out about along a 700-mile front. That isn't really enough, and they don't really have enough ammunition for those howitzers. And they need a lot more standoff capability than those howitzers will provide right now in their current form, because they have to get within range of the Russian guns in order to try to blow up the Russian guns, and that means the Russian guns can blow them up as well. And when you get into a fight like that with Russia, which has an almost unlimited supply of ammunition, because they've been stockpiling that since before the Cold War, and it doesn't really go bad, well, the Ukrainians might well lose. So ask yourself this. If you say, well, $40 billion is enough, we shouldn't give Ukraine any more. Number one, I've just shown you, we're not really giving that money to Ukraine. It's not going to Ukraine. Number two, what would be worse than spending $40 billion ostensibly to help Ukraine? Well, I would submit that what's worse is spending $40 billion on that problem and not solving the problem, and letting Russia go ahead and take over Ukraine, and we end up with exactly the problem we would have had if we had done nothing, but we're $40 billion in the hole, actually closer to $50 billion when it's all said and done. That is why I think if we're going to help Ukraine, in for a penny, in for a pound, let's do what we got to do to help them drive Russians out, and Russia will not be a threat to us for a generation or more. If we're not going to help them, then let's cancel the $40 billion and just stand back and see what happens. And what will happen is that Ukraine will be overrun by Russia, and Russia will be on our doorstep, on NATO's doorstep, and will be a threat to the world, will be emboldened because they've won, and an emboldened Russia will not be good for America. That's my 2 cents on this matter. I hope it's been helpful. Please like and share the podcast. I'm Chuck Holton, and I really appreciate you watching. Go to chuckholton.locals.com, and we'll see you later.